Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Saskatchewan Book Awards portion of the Cathedral Village Arts Festival online. My name is Cam Teo, and I'm the Executive Director of the SBA. Before I go further, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 4 territory and the homeland of the Michif and the Métis. We are all treaty people. We must work towards reconciliation. First, a little housekeeping. Our major sponsors and funders who help make the festival possible are the City of Regina, Saskatchewan Arts Board, Sask Culture, Sask Lotteries, Royalco Radio, and Canadian Heritage. Finally, I would like to thank the Canada Council for the Arts for allowing us to bring two excellent writers to you this evening. Our first author is Raye Hendrickson. Raye grew up in Aylsham, Saskatchewan, and has lived in Regina for most of her adult life. Raye is a registered massage therapist. Raye has loved words all her life and began writing poetry in the 1990s. Raye's poems explore the intricacies of relationships and the mysteries and curiosities of science and nature. Her work has been published in Spring, the Society, and the anthology Blind Dance. Raye's first book of poetry, Five Red Sentries, was released by Thistledown Press in May 2019 and is shortlisted for two 2020 Saskatchewan Book Awards in the City of Regina and First Book categories. I am pleased to introduce Raye Hendrickson. Raye, please.
Thank you, Cam. I appreciate your inviting me to do this reading today, and thank you for everyone who's tuning in to this unusual way of participating in the Cathedral Village Arts Festival. It's a little different, but thankfully we can gather apart anyway. I'm delighted to be able to read from my book today. As Cam mentioned, I've been writing poetry since the 1990s, and this book, Five Red Sentries, is a scattering of all the various themes of poems that I've written throughout the years. I'm going to start with a poem that is actually one of the first poems I wrote, and it's about a childhood experience I had. I grew up in a two-story house where the bedrooms were on the second floor, and the only way heat got to the second floor was through these square holes in the floor. There were no grates, unlike I'm sure what they would have today. My bedroom happened to be over the kitchen, and my parents often had friends over in the evening to play cards at the kitchen table. So this poem generates from that experience. Night watch. Snapping cards and laughter, plating smoke, intermittent curses. Cold linoleum bites through pajamas. The silent watcher, dizzy, spies through the flue open to the kitchen below. Mother frowns ceilingward. Cramped muscles protest as the should-be sleeper crawls chastened between now icy sheets. She strains to hear scores tallied, her father shuffling cards like rippling sand. I've always been fascinated by the sky, the stars, the moon, outer space. And so this next poem is about my love of that. This poem is called Why I Want to Travel the Stars. Because night wears belly rings, and stars are not ashamed. Diamonds sear skin. I want to hear night singing, smell night blooming, see night birthing. Because stars call me by name, and I have a name for the star 5 to the left of Polaris. I want to see the roots of a star, look down the throat of a star, fall through a star to the other side of my questions about God. Touch a star and burn away the lump in my throat. Carry home a piece of red. Time is languid among the stars. Light is too slow. Warp drives and slipstreams are still science fiction. But communication doesn't need speech, because particles light years apart change spins simultaneously. Because tectonic ruptures fray the cord between mantle and cosmos, and Earth is crying. Stars tire from burning, but heat forges strength. Because our wings were clipped at birth. I've not only been moved by the stars and the moon and sun and stuff, I've always also loved nature and have experienced many moments that have just fed my soul. And I have to say, when you live in Saskatchewan, sometimes being out in a strong wind is exactly what you need. This poem is titled Birds Blown Sideways, Qu'Appelle Valley. The lake in full ruff summons me with white cap passion. Clouds skim into sculpture. Eagle becomes horse, becomes antler, giant, cathedral. The wind is a solid today. My journey to the shore like wading through treacle. Sand thrashes the water. I wrestle with my hood, turn my back to the gale, lean hard. Sand pelts my body, fills the sky. I find shelter in a patch of dried wire rush, burrow down. The world is a strip of dust-laden reeds rustling like pickup sticks, and the wind, a roaring avalanche, waterfall thunder. In my abdomen, a quivering, my cells in collective quickstep. In 2009, my partner and I bought this sweet little house. And as happens often when you buy a new house, you want to make changes. So the first thing we did was dig out the basement. We dug it down to have greater ceiling height. We took the cement out, put in new plumbing. And we weren't quite finished, but we went out for an evening and the rain came. This is the story of what happened when the rain came. Finding my home. We've come home through a monsoon-like storm to find our freshly dug trench for weeping tile full. A moat because the clay is gone. And no electricity in the house. My whole body tenses. My muscles go rigid. My belly is so tight I can barely breathe. I feel ready to fall apart from the strain. Elspeth braves the weather again to seek help from our son-in-law. He comes and in candlelight assembles the sump pump, digs out the pit for the basin and leaves. Then we wait for the return of power. When lights come back on, we hear the pump and rush downstairs to see the water drain away. But the lights flicker, go out again. Elspeth goes for the candles we left upstairs. In the dark, alone in the corner of the basement, I feel the earth beneath my feet. The concrete is gone, radon rock covers most of the floor, but in this spot, it's just earth. My earth. The soil upon which this house has rested for 91 years. As I press my feet into the ground, my belly loosens. My breath is deep. The theme for the Arts Festival this year is Kaleidoscope. And I love kaleidoscopes because you just turn it slightly and you have a whole different pattern in front of your eyes. And as a poet, sometimes I write a poem, I don't know where it comes from, and sometimes I'm not even quite sure what it means, but it just is what it is. And so this poem to me feels like my kaleidoscopic offering to the Arts Festival this year. This poem is called Revision. Every other time I faced the locked door, I turned away. Shaking knees, nausea. This time I fit the key, then stumble through to a new dream. In my hands a rainbow, sizzling, sparking. The colors split, converge, begin to spin fast and faster. A vortex of white light. I am caught, sucked in. Skin peels the thread, holding me snaps. Dancing alone, the blue arc whirls so fast, sky thinks itself a circle. Umber, russet, gold, taupe. Lavender, pink, orange, red, magenta, turquoise, emerald, terracotta. The arc slows, stops. Dizzy, it wraps its arms around earth. My fingers stretch to touch its skin. Sky's belly slides away, and sapphire drips down my arm. Don't ever tell me that dismantled nights have nothing to do with emptied eyes. To understand all this stillness is to believe that black holes are only momentary patches of chaos, the spinning of skulls so full, everything seems dark. I'd like to close my reading with a poem that describes why the book has the title Five Red Sentries. It's one of two poems that makes reference to that. My mother died in 2002, and in the summer I went home with a friend to visit all my old haunts, including the graveyard where my parents were and the home farm yard that I never lived in, but my parents and siblings lived in before I came along. The poem is called Lament. Once I heard secrets told to me by trees. The windbreaks on my family farm spoke of my father planting a blue spruce at my brother's birth, a weeping birch at my sister's. Two siblings, tall and strong. The trees whispered my father's love, how he planted and tended the crops, stood in the field listening to the wheat grow. 8 Saskatoons from the bush along the railway track as he read the sky. Harvested until after midnight. My playground, sheltered by this circle of trees, a row of granaries, a gas pump, my sibling trees, a tumble-down shed housing all the rusty nails, scraps of metal, and old golf clubs my father swore he would use someday. But the windbreaks no longer speak, raised with everything for a few acres of crop. Everything but the granaries, 5 red sentries. I stand in their shadow, and the wind howls. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Raye, for your very evocative words today. Our next author is Beatrice Wallace. Beatrice is a manager of a women's recovery program at Soul Harbor Rescue Mission in Regina, and is also a board member of the White Pony Lodge. Beatrice was also adopted as part of the 60s scoop. Beatrice will be reading from her memoir, Wolf Woman, A Search for Identity, which has been nominated in the Saskatchewan Book Awards Indigenous Peoples Writing category. I am pleased to present Beatrice Wallace.
Hi, so I'm the author of Wolf Woman, A Search for Identity. It is based on my life story. I'd like to share a little bit. I was born on Muscogwan First Nations, and at 7 months I was put into care, and I was adopted into a white middle class home at the age of 4. There was a lot of abuse there. That carried on for quite a few years. All of the abuses we can think of, I feel like I went through it. And at 13, just about 14, I went into a Native girls' home, which right away I was called an apple, so I didn't fit in there either. So that's a part of searching for my identity. I'm just going to read from my book right now. A new girl, Christine, came into the house, and the bullying was almost redirected to her. I knew how she felt. Christine was a pale-skinned, tall, and pretty. She seemed nice. I didn't see her much because she was always hiding in her room. Her room was beside mine, and I'm not sure, but I think I heard her crying. I felt a bit selfish. I was glad not to be the one getting picked on. At breakfast, I sat by her and asked her how she was doing. I just want to get out of here, she said. I want to leave also. I wanted to leave also. We sat in silence through the meal. Later we talked and she whispered, I'm going to run away. My eyes got big. Where will you go? I asked. She told me, I have a lot of family, so it would not be a problem for her to find a place. Then she added, you should come. Running away to a place where people would invite you in. That seemed like a strange concept to me. One time back when I was living in my adopted home, I was playing outside at my friends at Turtle Park. I must have been around 10 or 11 years old when Jomaine allowed me to play with my friends. She told me I had to be home before the sun started to set. This one particular day, I didn't realize it was getting dark. Crap, I'd be grounded for a heck of a long time if I go home now. I decided to continue to play. Once all my friends went home, I started in the direction of home, but I turned around and ran in the opposite direction. I decided I would run away. I slept under the train tracks. I wondered what it would be like to jump on and ride away to an unknown destination. During the day, I collected bottles to take to the store for money and buy a bag of chips. A friend snuck me into her house one night, and the other friend did the same the other night, but I decided to go home, even though I was scared to return because I didn't like this runaway life. I braved up and walked home. I stood at the front door and rang the doorbell. Jomaine opened it and stared at me for a long time. She looked sad. She said, I was worried about you. She told me to come in, and we never talked about it. Needless to say, I was grounded forever. It was hard running away, and I never ran away from there again. Excuse me. When Christine asked me to run away, I was curious and agreed to go with her. It took a couple days of planning. We made the escape a real adventure. Our rooms had windows big enough for us to fit through, but they were on the second floor, which prevented an easy escape. We decided to tie the sheets together and escape jailhouse style. In the middle of the night, we threw the sheets out the window, secured them, and climbed down. Once we were both outside, we ran away giggling. What a thrill. I had never walked in the hood in the middle of the night before. Instead of feeling fear, I felt excited. We walked a few blocks and came to a big brown house across the street from the school. Christine looked at me. This is my aunt's place. She knocked on the door and proceeded to walk in. I followed her. We were greeted by smoke and crackling laughter. Nobody even realized we were there. I glanced around the living room, and it was dark and it felt gloomy. It was dirty and it had a bad smell, like someone had burnt their food while cooking. This is Beatrice, Christine interrupted my thoughts. I looked over at the table, and there was a group of adults sitting there. The table was dirty with ashtrays heaping full, little piles of garbage all over, and a bunch of needles and spoons full of white powder. Sit down, Emil. voice made me break my gaze. I moved clothes out of the way and sat on a ripped up flowery couch. I'd never been in a place that looked so gross. I felt uncomfortable, the fear of unknown. I tried not to make eye contact with anyone, but I couldn't help but be mesmerized by what they were all doing. They filled needles up with stuff on the spoons. Some injected themselves, and the others waited their turn to get their fix. They passed the needles around, cleaning them with water and sharing them. One day they looked at me and said, "Do you know what this is?" I shook my head no. She started, "This will take all your worries away." And they laughed. I nervously laughed. Wouldn't that be nice? She called me over to her. I looked at Christine and she gestured for me to join them. She fit in well. She has done this before. I could tell by how comfortable she seemed. My heart beat fast. Although I felt fear, I didn't hesitate. Christine got off the chair and I sat down. Bella, the lady who held the needle, was older, swollen in the face, and dark-skinned and really bad breath. She tapped the needle to remove bubbles. "These bubbles can kill you." She winked at me and gave me a little nudge. For a moment, sanity hit me, and I wondered what the hell I was doing. But before I could change my mind, my vein was filled with Tauwen and Ritalin, or as some people call it, T's and R's, or poor man's heroin. Within seconds, everything seemed foggy. My stomach turned, and I tried to jump up, but everything was in slow motion. I managed to spit out, "I'm going to throw up." Christine grabbed me and hustled me to the bathroom. I got sick, seemed like for eternity, and that was the last time I saw Christine. Later, from where I now sat on the couch, everything grew hazy, but I actually felt like there was a weight lifted off me, because I completely and utterly did not care. "Must have been a good hit," I heard someone muffle out. Some people say people become addicts right away. I absolutely believe them, because that was what happened to me. At 14 years old, I had my first drug experience. It was the cruelest thing that a lady could ever done to anyone. I wondered if she realized she had introduced me to a lifetime of addiction and addictive behaviors. I had heard about the hood, but I had never been down there. We would drive by it when I was with Jomaine. And when we would see a drunken native person panhandling, she would tell me, "That's probably your uncle. See, that's how you're going to be when you get older." I will never be like that stupid Indian. I'd never even drank a beer before that night, and then my whole world shifted again. I sat there high as hell, unable to stand up. A guy my age seemed to be taking a liking to me, but I was too high to pay any attention. There was a room where I was allowed to sleep. It was like an addict room. I'm not sure how I got to bed, but I woke up with this guy on top of me. I was too out of it to push him off, so I just laid there and lost my virginity. I didn't cry. I couldn't fight. I just laid there. I must have been passed out because I woke up and there's another guy on top of me. This time, I had a bit of energy and I managed to say "stop" in a fainted voice. I didn't feel anything, but I knew that he was penetrating me because he was sexually abusing me, and I couldn't stop it. When I woke up the next morning, I saw blood on the sheets, and I was filled with humiliation and sadness. I'd never even had a boyfriend before this. I felt used and abused, and that night my entire world changed. I was no longer this innocent little girl. I was just another number being prepped for the streets. So I'm going to stop there. And the rest of my book just talks about my life up till a year ago, really. Yeah. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Beatrice, for relating your life story as a strong Indigenous woman to your listeners this evening. I would like to thank Bernadette Wagner and John Kennedy for their help in making these readings possible. I thank again the Canada Council for the Arts for bringing us these excellent authors. And finally, I would like to thank Raye Hendrickson and Beatrice Wallace for their wonderful readings this evening. And don't forget to buy Raye's book, 5 Red Sentries, through Thistledown Press, and Beatrice's book, Wolf Woman, A Search for Identity, through Defend Dignity. Thank you, and have a good evening. Please stay safe. Have a good night.